Chapter 10. Chase was barely waking up when the sun was starting to rise. He stretched his legs and yawned. When he looked around, he remembered that he was still at the lake. It had been 2 days since he got lost. He walked over to the waterfall and took a sip of the cold water. He picked some of the berries off the bushes and rinsed them in the waterfall before eating them. He took another look around. The area around the lake was clear of animals. The day before, animals started to appear around the lake a couple of hours after the sun rose, so Chase figured it would be the same today. He took a jog around the lake. Sometimes, when he would wake up much earlier than when he was supposed to go wake up the other pups, he would go on a jog around town to clear his mind, and it was calming for him. As he jogged, his mind was empty. He had no thoughts, no memories, no care for time. He felt the wind gushing around him, making a slight whistling sound as he passed. The morning breeze set a chill throughout his entire body, but the sensation was relaxing. The cold air allowed him to breathe more smoothly. The chirping of birds, the sound of the waves crashing into the rocks gently, and the sound of the trees swaying due to the wind all caused him to feel at peace. Chase had always been able to relax when he was surrounded by nature. Back at the lookout, he had a spot that overlooked the bay and the town of Adventure Bay. He enjoyed sitting there alone at night, after everyone else had fallen asleep, with his eyes closed. His mind would race, thinking about his past, the present, and how to improve the future. He remembered a moment when Sky had found him there and sat down right next to him. They talked for a while, though he forgot what about. While they talked, Sky leaned her head against his shoulder. That had caused him to blush, but he tried his best to hide it. Luckily for him, because of the darkness and the color of his fur, Sky never noticed his cheeks turn the same color as Marshall's hat. She had fallen asleep as they were talking, so he brought in upon himself to take her back to her pup house. Chase, himself, was not yet tired, so he was planning on returning to the cliff. As he walked back, he heard Sky whisper something that sounded like "I love you." He turned around and noticed that Sky was asleep, so he didn't think much of it. Not applicable, she did tell him that she loved him, but it was during the period where you are half awake, half asleep, so she didn't realize it. Chase finished his job in the same place where he had started it. He had jogged 2 laps around the lake without even realizing it. He was breathing heavily and his front right leg was. He looked down at his arm. He remembered that when he was coming down the side of the cliff, he had gotten scraped by a root that was poking out from the dirt. It had left a cut roughly 2 inches in length. The cut wasn't deep, but it had bled a tiny bit. He carefully took off his police vest and pup pack and walked into the lake. Small fish swam away as he got close. When he was deep enough, he wiped off all of the dried blood and cleaned the wound. Once he was done washing his paw, he engulfed himself underwater. He hadn't taken a bath since he got lost, which was 3 days ago. He was looking forward to it. He swam for a couple of minutes before getting out. Once he was on dry land, he shook off all the excess water. He looked up at the sky. He pictured Sky up there, doing tricks with her wings. He was always amazed by how talented the small cockapoo was in the air. He knew that he wasn't able to perform half the things she could if he tried. Thinking about her made his stomach turn. He missed her very much. Chase looked around. Deers started popping out of the tree line here and there. Okay, he told himself aloud. Time to leave. But first, we have to prepare. He walked up to the nearest bayberry bush. He noticed a large round rock nearby, which gave him an idea. During a mission once, they had to pick up apples for Farmer Yumi while she was gone. The barn was locked and all the baskets were inside. Ryder came up with an idea. He told Chase to launch his net over a nearby boulder. Chase did so and Ryder started twisting the net around the boulder. He turned the net until it was tight over the boulder. The ropes that made up the net were so close that they couldn't see the boulder on the other side. Ryder used the suction cups at the ends to hold the ropes together by placing the suction cups on top of the ropes. When Chase retracted his net, the net came off the boulder smoothly and revealed that the net held the shape of a sack. They filled it with apples and Chase was able to carry a dozen apples in the sack without it falling apart and apples rolling everywhere. Chase did the same thing using the rock he found near the bush. Once the sack was done, he started filling it with bayberries. Once he was done filling it, he retracted the net as much as he could until the bag was on his back. He walked over to the same river he had appeared at the lake from. He looked at the lake one last time. He wanted to come back in the future. He started up the river. He stepped into the river. The moving water was cold just as he remembered from 2 days ago. He walked up the river. He walked up the river for an hour until he ended up back at the spot where the river splits in two. He turned down the other stream that came off the river. He noticed how it turned back around and turned once more and continued to head north. Then he heard a scratch of an eagle. The proximity of the mountains caused the noise to echo from every direction. Chase's ear turned 90 degrees as he heard something crash into a tree. When he turned to the noise, he noticed something falling from the tree. He ran as fast as he could towards the tree. He couldn't make out the figure of the creature, but he noticed glimpses of golden brown. No matter what it was, Chase thought, it needs my help. He ran faster towards the tree, the bag of bayberries weighing as much as feathers. The being was going to fall onto a pile of enormous rocks. Chase knew that impact could cause severe damage. Chase jumped onto a large boulder and jumped in the air. The bag of bayberries got separated from Chase. As he was getting closer to the creature, he held out his arms. He had been on point by the millisecond. He wrapped his arms around the creature. He tucked the creature under him as he brought in his 4 legs. He closed his eyes. He pushed the creature's head into his chest so no dirt would harm its eyes. He ended up rolling on the ground on the other side of the boulders for roughly 5 feet. Okay, I think we're clear, Chase said, looking up at the eagle above, who started to retreat. That's when Chase realized that it was not 1 eagle, but 3. He figured that whoever he saved was going to be their dinner if it wasn't for him. Suddenly, Chase's nose started to act out. He smelled something familiar. Chase, though, I have only smelled this scent before from. He turned around and found himself into the most beautiful magenta-colored eyes he had ever seen. Sky? Chapter 11. Sky had spent a bit longer last night searching for Chase. She looked everywhere, but she couldn't find him anywhere. She had not realized that she passed her time limit until an hour later. She returned to the lookout and parked her helicopter in its designated location. She hopped off as her helicopter returned to its pup house form. She entered her pup house and rested on her bed. She had Chase's hat on her head. The police hat was too big for her, so it tilted to the side, but she didn't mind. Wearing the hat, she felt a blanket of protection covering her. She felt safe and strong with it on. Despite this, it was still only a fraction of how she felt with Chase around. He had this aura of protection and courage. She had noticed that it wasn't only her that felt safe around Chase. The other pups also felt that aura. She remembered, one time, she heard about a mission where Marshall felt the same. Usually, after missions, the pups would talk about what happened during the mission to those that didn't go. She remembered hearing how Chase, Marshall, and Ryder had to go save Jake from a cave and Marshall was frightened by the cave. When Chase came, Marshall stated that he wasn't scared when Chase was around. Chase radiated courage more than any other pup. That was one of the millions of reasons why she cares so much for him. She fell asleep with these thoughts. When she woke up, she realized that it was pretty late. She got up quickly and got dressed. She exited her pup house and walked into the lookout. Everyone was watching television. The pups turned to her and smiled. "Good morning, Sky," Ryder said. He was sitting fully dressed on the couch with the pup pad on his lap. The tablet displayed a map of the Adventure Bay area with places on the map crossed out, places where they have already looked. "Good morning," she replied. "How long was I out?" "We all woke up 2 hours ago," Zuma explained. "We heard that you were up late last night searching, so we decided not to wake you up just yet." "Thank you," Sky commented. Zuma nodded and turned his head to the television. Sky discovered that her throat was dry and she had a bitter taste in her mouth. She looked over next to Everest and noticed her food and water bowls filled, ready for her. "Yeah, we had your breakfast ready," Everest explained as she noticed that Sky was staring at her food. Sky walked over and sat down. She started drinking water from the bowl. It cleared her throat and removed the bitter taste from her mouth. "Thank you, Everest, Sky stopped herself when she noticed something. Marshall was on the other side of Everest, watching the show. The two pups' fur were touching and Everest her paw over Marshall's paw. She whispered into Everest's ear. "When were you going to tell me about that?" she asked, smirking. Everest knew what Sky was referring to and blushed a light pink, which was barely noticeable except for Sky. Her eyes opened wide. "Oh, we're not, it's not." She stuttered. She didn't move her paw though. Everest felt that if she moved her paw, it would get awkward for her to put in on his paw again. Of course, when she did it the first time, it was not on purpose, but she could care less. She was so close to Marshall that she felt so happy. Sky noticed how embarrassed her best friend was. She didn't want Everest to feel this way. "You two make a great couple," she whispered. "You think so?" Everest asked, whispering as well. "I'm sure of it, I'm happy for you." "Thanks, Sky." She turned to Marshall, who was hypnotized by the screen. She softly laughed at the fact that he didn't hear a word, which caused Marshall to turn his head to her. He smiled at her, unsure why she laughed. He still loved to see her laugh. Marshall smiling caused her to smile back. Chapter Sky had finished eating her breakfast. "All done?" Ryder asked. Sky nodded. "Great, now we can focus on finding Chase." At a second's notice, all the pups got up and ran to the elevator. Ryder turned off the television and followed them. That was one of the few times Marshall didn't cause a crash in the elevator. 10 out of 10 entry, he said. The others laughed as the elevator started ascending to the top floor. As they went up, the elevator stopped on the middle floor for them to get changed into their uniforms and went up the rest of the way. Once they reached the top, all the pups jumped into their spots and Ryder ran to the front. "Okay, we all know what needs to be done, correct?" Ryder asked. All the pups nodded. "Good, we are going back to the same places that we were yesterday. Zuma will go with Captain Turbot and Everest will go with Jake. Some of the volunteers won't be able to make it, so I need one of you to go with Everest to the mountain. Since she left her vehicle at Jake's cabin, she will be riding with you." "She can ride with me," Marshall blurted out a bit too quickly, causing the others to give him suspicious looks. I volunteer to go help Jake and Everest in the mountain." "Thank you, Marshall," Ryder said. "As for the rest of us, we will return to the same place, got it?" The pups nodded. All right, Paw Patrol is on a roll, he said as he ran over to the fireman pole that led to the storage. The pups slid down the slide in the following order: Marshall, Everest, Rubble, Rocky, Zuma, and lastly Sky. When Sky slid off the slide, she landed in her helicopter, but the engine wouldn't start. Everyone else was ready. When Ryder exited the garage and noticed that Sky was not with them, he drove his ATV to Sky's pup house. Something wrong, Sky? Ryder asked. My helicopter won't start for some reason, she replied. Ryder got off his ATV and examined the mainframe under the tail of the helicopter, muttering something about wires and connection. Okay, I will have to examine it later on. Can you drive Chase's spy cruiser? Sure. Okay, good. We should get going, I don't want to waste any more time. Ryder got back on his ATV. The pups with vehicles and Ryder went through the bridge. She caught up to them halfway across the bridge. Once they reached the other side, the team separated. Marshall, Everest, and Zuma headed to the left while the others headed to the right. It took a minute before Sky got comfortable with the steering. The cruiser was harder to control than her helicopter. They drove for an hour before stopping. Instead of going down the left path like the last time, they drove down the right path. They continued until they noticed something on the ground. It was the two cinder blocks that stopped Chase's cruiser. They stopped in front of them. The one on the left was broken in half while the one on the right was only chipped along the edges and had black paint from where it scraped the cruiser. This is where Chase hit the cinder blocks, Ryder said. They got off and were shocked at how big the cinder blocks were. The one that wasn't completely broken was roughly the size of Sky. They were surprised that the cinder blocks didn't cause more damage to the cruiser. Okay, let's look for him around here. Rocky, I will show you how to control the drone. Sky, you are going to look for him from above. I and Rubble will search on foot. Okay, the pups responded in unison. Sky took off from the ground. She searched for Chase from over the treetops. She has been searching for Chase for roughly an hour when heard a dreaded screech. She looked down at the ground and noticed Rubble and Ryder. They were both looking up all around them. They heard the noise as well. Sky felt a lump form in her throat. She knew well where that noise came from. She looked down at Ryder, who was waving at her, yelling. Eagles, he yelled out to Sky. As if on cue, she heard the eagle screech again. She turned around and noticed, not one but 3 eagles coming for her. She ducked out of the way as one of the eagles crashed into the mountainside. The other 2 kept coming after her as the third one shook off its dizziness. Sky swerved and turned to lose the eagles, but the skilled aviaries stayed on her tail. One got close enough to scrape her wing with its talons. She moved to her right and both eagles passed her. She thought she got rid of them, but she forgot about the last one. It tried to grab Sky, but it missed. Sky got startled and flew into a tree. She the top of the tree and started falling. She noticed a pile of rocks under her. She closed her eyes, ready for an impact. She felt some arms wrap around her and tuck her head into its chest. She felt as they both rolled, the other one took in all the impact, completely protecting Sky from the damage. A couple of seconds passed and she heard a voice that made her heart skip a beat. Okay, I think we're clear, Chase said, staring at the eagles as they flew away. Sky couldn't believe it. She had come all this way to save him, and he ultimately saved her. She couldn't find the right words to say. She just stared at him in disbelief. He turned around and was just as shocked as she was. Sky? Sky stuttered. What are you doing here? It's dangerous out here. You could have gotten. Chase was interrupted by Sky. She hugged him around his waist. He was shocked by this. He didn't know how to react. Hey, it's okay, Sky, Chase said, stroking the back of her head. Everything is fine. Now it is, Sky responded. She looked up at his amber eyes. He smiled at her. She missed seeing that smile every day. She hadn't let go of him yet. Ryder was right, Sky thought, we found him. That thought brought her back to reality. I just remember, she told him as she released him. Ryder and others are worried sick about you. Ryder? Is he here? Chase asked as he looked around. Come on, I'll take you to him, she said. Okay, let's go, Chase said. Lead the way. Chapter 12. Ryder, Rocky, and Rubble were looking for a sign that Sky was all right. Ryder had tried to call Sky through her pup tag, but her pup tag broke when she crashed into the tree. Where could she be? Ryder muttered to himself. He paced around the vehicles. There was a rustling noise in the nearby bushes. They all turned to notice Sky come out of the bushes and walk towards them. Sky? Ryder said as he kneeled to hug the cockapoo. Are you injured? What happened? I'm fine, Ryder, Sky said. I would have gotten more injured if it wasn't for him. Ryder tilted his head. Who? He looked up at his jaw dropped as he saw the German Shepherd come out of the same bushes. Chase? Ryder! Chase exclaimed as he ran over to his owner. He held out his arms to receive Chase, but was tackled by the pup instead. Ryder just laughed as Chase licked his cheeks. Ryder hugged him. I missed you so much, Chase, Ryder said. I missed you, too, Ryder, sir, Chase responded as he got off the boy. Chase. Rubble said as he and Rocky came over. Hey, how are you two? He asked as he hugged them. We're good, Chase, Rocky replied. And you? I'm good, just got a small cut on my leg, but other than that, I'm fine. From what you went through with the robbers, I would have thought you would have gotten more hurt, Ryder said. That reminded Chase of something. That reminds me. We still have to go stop those guys and retrieve what they stole and stop them from causing any more trouble. Plus. Ryder frowned. Chase, I don't think that's the best idea. For one, we just got you back. And for another, they must be gone for good by now. Not exactly, Chase said. Remember when we heard about some abandoned cabins further down this way? Yeah, but what about them? I think they could be there. It is far enough from town and surrounded by forests. We have to stop them. Ryder pondered on the thought. He looked back at Chase. You really think this is our best bet to find them? I wouldn't suggest it if I wasn't sure. But just to be sure, and I'm wrong, we'll just come right back. I can't back out from a mission. Okay, Chase, let's go. Thank you, Ryder, sir, Chase said. Chase looked around and noticed his spy cruiser. Chase and Ryder got into their vehicles. Rocky, Rubble, and Sky walked up to the side of the vehicles. We want to help as well, Rubble said. Rocky and Sky nodded in agreement. Before Ryder could say anything, Chase said, No, it's too dangerous. He looked over to the other vehicles and noticed one was missing. Sky, where is your helicopter? It wouldn't start this morning, Sky replied. Chase thought. Rocky, you can find out what's wrong with it, right? I could take a look at it, Rocky said. Okay, you go do that. You three should go back to the lookout. Call off all searches for me. Tell Zuma to return to the lookout and Everest to return to Jake's cabin. Tell Marshall to come and catch up with us in his medical form and to be quiet. Ryder couldn't help but feel proud at how easily Chase was taking charge. He knew he chose the right pup to be second in command. Chapter 12 3.2K4511 By Continue to next part. Add. But we want to come with you, Sky said. We want to help. It's too dangerous. I can't have anyone else come with us, Chase said. Sky was going to object, but she knew that Chase made up his mind and he won't change it. He smiled at her, which comforted her. Don't worry, everything will be fine. She jumped onto his vehicle and hugged one last time. Goodbye, Chase. Goodbye, Sky. See you soon. Wait, Ryder said. He got out of his vehicle and walked to Chase's cruiser. You might want this. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a collar with a dark blue pup tag that had a golden star in the center. He clipped it around Chase's neck. Thank you, Ryder, sir, Chase said. He turned to the others. Instead of flying, Sky rode in the back of Rocky's vehicle. Drive safely, he told them. Chase and Ryder drove around the cinder blocks as Sky and the others drove back to the lookout. Sky looked back until Chase was no longer in her sight. She hoped everything would turn out fine and Chase would be by her side once again. She must have whimpered because Rocky said, "Don't worry, Sky. Ryder and Chase would be fine." Marshall and Everest were searching for Chase in the mountains. Jake and the others were in another area of the mountain, so it was just them two. They still haven't received the message that Chase was found. They have been searching for him all day. Have you seen him yet? Marshall asked Everest. No, he's not around here, Everest responded as she looked over the edge of a cliff. We can't give up just yet, Marshall muttered to himself. He couldn't imagine what he would do if something happened to Chase. Losing Chase was like losing a brother. He couldn't handle the thought. He had to have hope. Hey Marshall, Everest called out. Huh, what? You were staring into space for a second, Everest said. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm just worried about Chase. Yeah, I have no idea how much Chase means to you. He's one of the most important in your life. He's your brother as well as your best friend. You love him more than anyone. Marshall scoffed. Not as much as I love Y. He stopped himself before he could continue, but it was too late. What? Everest asked. She wasn't sure if she heard him right. Marshall knew it was too late. He couldn't hide it anymore. So don't hide it anymore, his heart told him. Tell her what you feel. Tell her the truth. Everest, I have to be honest with you, Marshall confessed. Ever since I first met you on the day you joined, my heart has been glued to you. You're a beautiful, smart, funny, energetic, and all-around amazing pup. There is no hiding it. Sure, I love Chase with all my heart, but I think of you in a special way. Everest, I love you. Marshall felt good to take that off his chest. You love me? Everest asked in a voice that sounded as if she was in a trance. Well, yeah, how couldn't I? But I mean, I guess you. Marshall was interrupted by the husky. She couldn't wait any longer. She got closer to him and pressed her lips against his. Fireworks were through his mind, his heart racing like a Formula One race car. Everest moved away from him. "I love you too," she said. "You have always been so loving and caring, it just melts my heart. I love your jokes, your personality, and not to mention that I find you very attractive. I love you, Marshall, and that won't ever change." She leaned in for another kiss, but it was Marshall who went all the way this time. This kiss was not as long as the last one, but it meant just as much. They separated when they heard Marshall's pup tag ringing. "Marshall, come in, dude," Zuma said through the pup tag. Yeah?" Marshall said softly. He was still staring into Everest's diamond eyes. "I just got called by Sky. They found Chase." That statement got Marshall's attention and he looked away from her eyes. "Wait, are you serious?" "Yeah, Chase and Ryder went off to look for the other robbers from the museum theft a few days ago. They think they know where they are. Chase said Everest to go find Jake and tell him to call off the search. Can you tell Everest?" "Yeah, I'll tell her," Marshall replied. Everest smiled at him and he smiled back. "Awesome, dude. He also wants you to go follow him. The coordinates were sent to your truck's GPS. He also said to be silent. Too much noise could notify the robbers." "Okay, thank you, Zuma," Marshall replied. "No problem, bro. See you later," Zuma said as he hung up. "Can't believe that they already found Chase," Marshall said. "We better get going." "Yeah, we should," Everest agreed. They walked for 5 minutes before reaching their vehicles. The entire time, they stood so close to each other their fur was touching. "Well, I will go catch up to Chase and Ryder," Marshall said. He gave the husky one last kiss on the cheek. "Goodbye, Everest." "Goodbye, Marshall, I love you." "Love you too." Marshall got into his fire truck and sped off using the coordinates on his GPS. Everest sat in her seat. She couldn't hold in her excitement. She cheered and howled with joy. Her crush had kissed her. She felt as if she could faint. Her head was dizzy and her heart was racing. She eventually turned on the engine and drove to Jake and the others, telling them that the search was over. The pup saved Chase after a couple of days of being lost in the woods. Her thoughts of what happened with Marshall made her think though. "I wonder what will happen between Chase and Sky," she thought. Well, only time will tell.